Hello everyone, I'm Chloe Johnson and welcome to this Fresh Business Thinking webinar series, Lockdown Learning for Businesses, supported by BT. BT Skills for Tomorrow aims to empower businesses and their employees with the digital skills to help grow their business. The Skills for Tomorrow website includes free learning content that small businesses and their employees can access at any time on topics such as promoting your business with online advertising, making sure your customers can find you online, and much more. To find out more, you can click on the link in the comments. Coronavirus is continuing to be a challenge for small businesses and entrepreneurs across the UK. The outbreak leaves an overwhelming uncertainty into the future for business owners, but this is a time when as a business community, we need to come together and support one another. And we're lucky enough to work with organisations and individuals who are passionate about supporting entrepreneurs during this difficult time. One of those is our speaker today, Duncan Gledhill, the co-founder of Email Movers, the UK's leading full-service email marketing agency. Duncan is an email marketing expert in cold B2B email outreach and has over 17 years experience. Today, Duncan will show you step-by-step how to generate warm leads using one-to-one cold email outreach. Duncan will be talking for around 40 minutes and then we'll have some time for a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, you can leave them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen and we'll do our best to get to them later on in the session. That's all from me for now and I'll pass over to you, Duncan.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that, Chloe. Can I just confirm that you can still see my screen with my starting shortly intro? Okay, so I am involved in email and have been for as long as I can remember. It's something that I love. It is very much something that I enjoy talking about. And in this presentation, what I'm going to be focusing on is how we can use one-to-one cold email outreach to generate leads. This is something that is obviously hugely important to businesses right now because we've got a lot of change going on and those leads that are coming in need to be working hard for us. So I actually built this presentation at the beginning of lockdown and edited it as we went through, and I've used a live case study to do it. So it's actually information that is very relevant and very timely with what's going on. So you'll see quite a few references to our current situation and hopefully as things change. There is a Q&A at the end, which I'm more than happy to answer questions on and with the help of Chloe and hopefully give you guys a little bit of guidance if you need it. One of the things that I do try to make clear is that if you think of something after this webinar, which can often happen, I'm available on LinkedIn as the email guy. So all you need to do is search for email guy on LinkedIn and you should find me popping up with my smile. And then if we connect there, then you should be able to ask me pretty much anything you want. Even if it's around automation. I love automation. A lot of businesses have had to start relying heavily on automation, marketing automation over the last few weeks because their employees are on furlough. But that doesn't mean that the marketing has come to an end. It just means that they've had to automate a lot of it. And so there's all sorts of stuff that's been going on there, which I've been looking at and testing. So feel free to connect with me on anything relating to email, B2B email, outreach, deliverability, automation, you name it. So we've worked with a lot of customers. We've probably worked with around 4,000 customers over the last 17 years. I've worked personally with brands such as Toyota, Virgin Group for 10 years, lots of different clients, Prudential, you name it, all around the country and the US. So I do quite a bit in the US as I look after that territory for Email Movers now. And it's very similar. In fact, a lot of what I learn comes from the US and comes into my presentation and the things that I do here. So with that, I'm going to, now I see that somebody's raised their hand, and I'm assuming that Chloe will spot that and deal with that. I'll just get on with the presentation. So the idea is that we're looking to make more money. That's the basics of this presentation. And I'm going to show you how to do that using one-to-one cold email outreach. I'm going to be showing you how to generate cost-effective leads for the business quickly within a 2-hour turnaround, how you can do it and remain compliant with GDPR, and everything you need to know to do it should be in here. So if you're getting a recording of this, you should be able to go through that recording and see specifically what it is that you need to do. Now, I do have a checklist as well, which is a campaign checklist, which I can send through to you. If you want that, you can email me afterwards at duncan@emailmovers.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn and I'll send you that checklist, no problem. So the idea is that we bring those things together over the course of the next 40 minutes, and you should be able to leave here and do exactly what I'm going to do and generate warm replies, leads for your business, which you can then turn into customers. So what are you going to learn? You're going to learn that cold email isn't cold if it's done correctly. So you should not have any issues with your email becoming known as cold if you follow the rules that I'm going to explain to you here. That's really important. What we're actually creating is a sequence of messages that are going to come across as warm, and they're going to generate replies. I'm going to show you how to source the data, how to create your own campaigns, and how to send those campaigns, how to then create a copy that gets through to the inbox and creates some impact. And as a result of those things brought together, how that will generate warm replies into your business that then turn into leads and customers. So it's a process that anybody can follow. This is a snapshot of how it works, and it works within our business. I would say that we probably follow this process once or twice every 2 days. It's almost once a day that we do this. What we're looking at is some profiling. So we will take a particular customer, not a prospect, but a customer who has recently bought from us, and we will profile that company, that customer. This is B2B, so we look at the company and we do a lot of work on that profiling. We want to find out as much as we possibly can, so we've created some tools that help us to do that. We then look at our databases to see how many contacts we've got that are an exact match to that prospect within that company. We then edit that data using Excel to make it friendly, and then we cleanse it so that the email addresses we're sending to won't bounce. Once we've done that, we create and send a campaign, which is typically a plain text email campaign. We analyze the results, so we look at the leads, the prospects, the customers that's brought in, and then we go again. So that is a process that we follow that, as I say, we do it once a day, and we've got it probably down to about 45 minutes. Although when I first did it for the webinar, it took me about 2 hours. Although now we can duplicate a lot of the work that we've done. So you can actually get this down to about 45 minutes in total. And I'll show you the results that it generated for us. So we use a tool called Contact in Hand to profile the last customer that bought from us. We look at the customers that have come in through organic demand, so search engine optimization, Google PPC. We don't look at customers that have come in to buy off us using email marketing, unless it's a broad audience, because we don't want to get in a loop of some sort. So we look at the last person to find us on Google. We then look at that company and we understand as much as we can about them, because that prospect or customer is demonstrating to us something that is going on in their market space. That's why they've gone to Google, searched for our product, arrived at our website, registered an interest, and then purchased from us. Something happened inside their industry that has pushed them to do that. And that we'd like to know as much as we can about. We want to know as much as we can about the company, about the prospect, and about what happened. Those three things are really important. When we're sending cold email campaigns, there are obviously a lot of different moving parts, and each bit has got to be working well. However, the magic bit is why that person bought off us. I can't stress enough how important that is, because if you use that why in your outbound marketing material, you will make your message much more relevant to lookalike audiences. An example of this came in a couple of weeks ago when a company in a particular industry was able to get a grant to do some marketing. We understood after talking to that customer what happened for them to get that grant. And we then spoke to lookalikes and explained to them that if they had just received this grant, or if they were looking to get this grant, then it might be of interest for them to do X, Y, Z. And the response was very interesting. So it was the fact that we talked to them about something that they considered to be very relevant within their industry at that particular time that drove that response. In this particular case, a company had come to us on the 16th of April looking for a list of care homes. And in order to best meet their needs, we did this research. Now, we do it manually, but we also use the tool Contact Enhance because it does it much faster. We use Salesforce within our business, and we've created an automation using Zapier, and any company that comes into Salesforce as a lead or a prospect is automatically enhanced using Contact Enhance, but you can do it manually, and you can also do it manually just by going onto the web. There are some key things that you need to know about that company in order to find a good matching lookalike audience. The first thing is that you need to know what size of business that is. You can use employee band or you can use revenue to identify a rough size of the business. So in this particular case, the company had a revenue of £200,000 to £500,000. It's not advisable to use both because a company with 1 to 6 employees could have £200,000 to £500,000 of revenue. And if you select that band, you will narrow down how much data is available. You're only looking for those companies with 1 to 6. If you just say any company that's got 200 to 500,000, you'll give your data the best chance of delivering high results. We found that they were a manufacturer of paper stationery and that the person reaching out to us was a general manager, senior decision maker within the company. Now, Contact Enhance gave us that information very, very quickly. And it's actually anything under 50 queries is free on Contact Enhance. So it was it took no time to do it, and it was free. So that's a pretty good tool, isn't it? What we did find, however, is that the information that came back, we were able to then use to build up the lookalike audience. Now, we've got a tool called countrunner.com, which allows us to do this, but there are all sorts of different tools on the market. The tool that we've built allows us to analyze just over 700,000 contacts in UK limited companies by job title, by SIC code, by company size, and by location, which are the profile fields that we really need. If you sell nationally, then you don't really need to know where that customer is. It's only really if you're selling locally that you need to understand where that customer is so that you can address that area. An example of that would be that you have a team that is selling into Birmingham or Manchester in a particular week of the month because they have to be on site to do their sales. It might be demonstrations, whatever it is. That's when you might use location. It may also use it if you're an accountant and you only deal with companies within a 60-mile drive radius. But if you're selling to companies anywhere in the UK, then you can typically leave it blank. We found that there were, in terms of manufacturers, there were just under 87,000 contacts. Manufacturers of paper and products, there were 2,000 just over, and manufacturer of paper stationery is 542. Now, the difference was quite important for us, because the client had come to us and they had told us the reason why they were wanting data was, and this was the magic, was because care homes were sending letters, their residents were sending letters out to their families to say how they were doing, how they were getting on, all that kind of stuff, updates, etc. And those letters were coming through in blank envelopes. So the households that were receiving them couldn't identify or distinguish them from just junk mail coming into the letterbox and a letter from granny or granddad in the care home, or mum and dad or whatever. And so a lot of them weren't actually being opened, they were being thrown away. As a result of that, this company said, look, we can brand your envelopes with your care home details so that when that letter is received, people can see, oh, it's from a relative, which was really important. Now, that was the magic that we then used in the email copy when we were sending out to the other manufacturers of paper stationery companies. Have you considered reaching out to care homes and offering them your service to help them solve this problem? That was what drove the high number of warm responses in and the sales. So we were actually looking at the magic or the reason why that person bought from us as the opening idea to a prospect. I can't stress how important that is. Yet when you're talking, especially when you're using a cold intro, going in with an idea of some sort is really important, and it's working well at the moment. We then found that at those companies, there were 267 contacts with the job title Senior Decision Maker. So we only contacted 267 as our batch of prospects. Now, if you've ever done cold email outreach before, if you're a seasoned email marketing expert, you will be terrified at just 267 contacts, because it's not very many. And I'm going to reduce that even further over the next few slides as I work on the data. But don't worry, that 267 is enough to generate 3 leads and 1 sale. And that's what I'm going to go on to here. So once we've got those 267 records out of the database, we then need to make the information friendly, because we're going to use that information inside the email copy, which means that it needs to read as though I had written it. We all know that if you write in capitals, it comes across as a bit shouty. So you need to change that so that the first letter is a capital and then the rest of the letters are lowercase. And you can do that on Excel using a function called proper. So if you select cell B1, for example, and type in equals proper, then in brackets, put the cell that is containing your email movers, all in capitals or whatever word it is, then press enter. It will automatically do that work for you. So every word, every new word in that cell will start with a capital letter and the rest will be lowercase. As you can see, email movers has gone from email movers or in capitals to email movers in paragraph case. Then you need to copy that function all the way down your column to the end, press enter, and it will do everything for you very quickly. Now, don't forget that that at the moment is just a function. So you need to then copy that row or copy that column and then paste the values only into column C. Sounds a little bit complicated, but actually it isn't. And it takes a few seconds once you've worked out how to do it. There are videos on YouTube. And if you struggle, you can always ping me on LinkedIn or by email and I'll send you my own video, which I've created to show you how to do it. But it saves an enormous amount of time. You would not want to do that manually. And then remove words like LTD or limited or in brackets UK or PLC or anything like that, because I just would not write that in an email. I would write, I think we can help email movers. I wouldn't write, I think we can help email movers limited. And those small changes or improvements in the data to make it friendly when you're sending to it are really important. If you skip those kinds of steps because it takes a bit too long or whatever, you can significantly damage the results of the campaign, because people will be able to spot immediately that it is they're just part of a system. And right now we need to make people feel as though they are unique. So once I'd done that work, and I would say that that whole piece of work took me about 15 minutes, and now I can do it in a couple of minutes. Once I'd done that work, I then needed to cleanse the data. Now, even if I collected the data or downloaded the data from CountRunner today, I still cleanse it before I send to it. There's a couple of reasons why. If you send to data that has got email addresses in it that are invalid, you damage the reputation of the email address that you're sending through, and you don't want to do that. When you cleanse the data, you remove any invalid email addresses. So any email addresses that are coming back as invalid or no longer valid, those email addresses can be removed. You don't want to send to them. It's really important that you do this. It doesn't take very long. We've created a tool on emailcleansing.com called Email Inspector, and it cleanses the data for us. It's a very simple tool. It basically looks at the email address that you've uploaded, either a file or one at a time. It goes to that MX server, so the email server relative to that email address, asks that server if that email address exists. If it does, then it comes back and says, yes, valid. If it doesn't, it says invalid. Now then, that is pretty much an exercise that only takes maybe on this volume of records a couple of minutes, and it's well worth going through because you don't want those invalids in there. There are some unknowns. Now, unknowns are when the server doesn't respond. It actually runs something called a catch-all. So it will take any email address that comes into it, and even if that email address is dead, it will not tell you that that email address is dead. That's fine, because it also won't tell you that that email address is dead and damage your deliverability. So it's fine. However, for the purposes of this test, I only used the OKs. So I had those contacts in there, if you remember, from CountRunner, and after I'd edited my data, I dropped that down to 251 records. I also remove any records where the person has put their name, their first name in as an initial. So D. Gledhill, I don't put those in because I'm going to personalize my email. So it's going to say, hi, Duncan. It's not going to say, hi, D, because I wouldn't write that. And I do that manually. I actually sort my list alphabetically on the first name. I then look at all those that have got initial A, and I delete the whole row. I then look at those that have got initial B, and again, I delete the whole row, and I keep going until everything's gone. Most people put their full name in, they don't put their initials in. The reason why some appear with initials is because if they're using autocomplete in Google, and the autocomplete has got an initial instead of the first name, it puts that in and they just click submit when registering wherever it is that they've provided their information. But I get rid of them because it's not going to look very good in the email. Okay, so if I'm sending in bulk, so if I'm sending out to the data through a bulk marketing platform, and we've got, for example, we've got Aspiro Mail, which is a bulk delivery platform, then I will send to the unknowns. If I'm sending one-to-one cold email outreach, which is slightly different to bulk, then I only send to the OKs. Okay, so this, after cleansing 251 records, gave me in total 54 contacts. Of those 54 contacts that were okay, so they came back and said this email address exists, I sent it. I had 8 bad email addresses that I removed, and if I'd been sending a bulk email campaign, I would have sent to 54 plus 188. Now then, Email Inspector also checks for duplicates because we obviously don't want to be sending the same email to the same person twice, and that can happen, especially on certain data sets where you are targeting senior decision makers. A person might be a marketing manager and also a sales manager, and as a result of that, their email address may end up in your database twice. So it removes duplicates. On this occasion, it didn't find any. It only took probably 2 or 3 minutes for it to process. And once it's done, those records can be downloaded as an Excel spreadsheet or a .csv. What's really good about it also is that if I upload columns like company name, first name, email address, then the columns that I get back out are exactly the same. Even though it's only performing an action on the emails, it gives me my entire file back, so I can just upload it straight into my delivery system. Okay, so in order to move ahead with deliverability, as I said earlier, we do have bulk delivery platforms. And a bulk delivery platform, you use a shared IP address. So you have one IP address, all of your emails are going out through that IP address, and you probably share it with the platform's other customers. So for example, they may even rotate the IP address. So if we was using MailChimp or something like that, they have a set number of IP addresses and everybody's traffic goes through those IP addresses. Over the years, we've kept with that for bulk email delivery, but for one-to-one cold email outreach, we've moved away from it. We now use G Suite addresses. So we create a G Suite account, which is on Google Domains. You can create a G Suite account and buy a domain for £10 in the first year, so it's cheap. In fact, I think that is £10 for the domain per year. So it is cheap. And we've then created 3 different aliases at that G Suite account. Now then, I always create a non-precious domain. So I will create email movers -mail. If I'm working for a client, then it will be the client name, you know, the normal domain name -mail.com or whatever it is. I never send through the client's domain directly. And I also don't urge you guys to do that yourselves. Don't use your own domain to send out cold emails, cold one-to-one emails, or anything like that. Now then, one of the reasons why I then create alias accounts at those addresses is because obviously I could use real employees. So I could say, okay, we've got Katie, Amy, and Phoebe in the business. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create alias accounts for those people at a non-precious domain. But we don't do that. I did do that originally, but I stopped doing that. And the reason I stopped doing that is because you might put quite a bit of work into creating a great sequence of emails going out to some highly targeted prospects, and that sequence might last maybe 2-3 weeks. It might last 6 weeks, depending upon how many emails are in the sequence and how spread apart they are. However, if Katie then goes on maternity leave, or if she leaves the business, you suddenly have a whole sequence of messages and a lot of work and a lot of different prospects at different places in that sequence that you have to stop. You have to kill that sequence off completely, and you have to start all over again. And if it's the summer, let's say that it's July or whatever it is, this is happening repeatedly. You're just not going to get anywhere with any of it. So if you create the sequences under the names of aliases, so people who don't actually exist, but you can obviously create a name, then you can never turn it off. That alias is theoretically owned by the business. When somebody replies, and obviously they will do, so they might ask you for a cost, or what color is your item, or when can I have it delivered, something like that. That message is forwarded on to the person in the sales team as a warm reply, and they need to get into contact with them. That alias address is only for the initial delivery. So it's only for the initial outreach. And the reason is to protect, safeguard the business and the time and resources that you're going to be putting into this. Okay, so in the unlikely event of a complaint coming back in, either on your precious domain or on your non-precious domain, the two aren't going to be affected. And that's one of the most important reasons for using a non-precious domain. Because if something happens to one of your domains, it doesn't stop the other. Okay, so the accounts on Google are $8.99 per month per account, but that for some reason G Suite gives everybody, when they first register, a standard account, and you don't want a standard account, you want a basic account for this, and that is $4.99 a month. So if you're looking at £10 a year for the domain and £4.99, you're looking at about £15 a month for the 3 aliases that you're going to be sending through. So you've got a nice low cost in terms of your deliverability. So in terms of the campaign, obviously we create named campaigns. So we've got different time zones that we're delivering to as well. The application that we've created also manages any messages that come back in, like out of office messages or anything like that, any bounce messages. So if we get an out of office, that's actually, it is a bounce, it is coming back. However, it is a soft bounce, and that's fine. Email address is full, out of office, that kind of stuff. Those types of bounces are no problem whatsoever. It's the hard bounces, email address invalid, that's what you want to avoid. Any auto replies, for instance, like an out of office, they're all filtered. So the only emails that we get back in when using this application are actually warm replies. So they're replies as such. We then create the campaign and send out the email as a part of a sequence. So I typically create 3 messages. One is my first introduction message. The second message is, did you get my message yesterday or the day before? The third message is, I can see you're busy. Do you want me to continue sending you information about this product service? And I usually use a double negative on that. So if you want me to stop sending you information about my company, what we do, how we can help you, just let me know. Because if somebody replies, all of these sequences, all of the automation, everything stops anyway. So somebody replying no will stop the sequence. Somebody replying yes will stop the sequence. That's good, because if somebody replies and says, can you tell me how much this is? I don't want my sequence to continue sending the messages about the product. I need to step in, send that to a human, and the human needs to deal with that as a lead. So the 3 messages, that's my template for using it. You can use any method that you want. One of the, when I was first looking at this, and some of you guys might remember, Barack Obama ran for president, and one of the biggest things that he used to influence people was sequential autoresponder, which is technically what's happening here. So it's a sequence of messages going out over a period of time with delays between them. And there is a book out there somewhere that you can buy and read about it. He had over, I believe, 1,000 messages in his sequence at the end. So his campaign managers created a sequence where a person could register, and over a period of days, weeks, they got over 1,000 messages. And each message had a different idea, it had a different tone to it. It was either asking for a small donation, or it was trying to spread a certain ideology, whatever it is. The impact of doing this was enormous, because it got a large group of people to contribute very small amounts to a large campaign or to a single campaign, rather than with other presidential campaigns, there being a low number of very high donors, and really that was fueling the campaign budget. Obama turned that all around, and the power of this tool meant that people actually felt as though they were getting an email from Barack Obama himself into their inbox saying, thanks so much for that $2 that you just donated. It's going to change the world. Very, very powerful stuff. So sequences of messages spread out over a period of time can build up dramatic events. I mean, I've seen clients that have used sequences, and on their 4th and 5th message, they will get a response simply because that person didn't have a requirement at the time. And after that period of time had gone past, they had a requirement, and there he was at the top of the inbox. I felt as though I knew the person, so I responded to the email, can you tell me what colors they come in, or whatever. So in terms of the create send, just going straight out to people with a product is very risky. So if you use cold one-to-one email outreach just to go straight out into the inboxes of your prospects and sell something, you have to be prepared for a zero result. So when you are going out with those types of products, obviously with bulk email, it does work. You can send out to 10,000 people and you can get orders in. There is a big difference though. You go into 10,000 people there. And even if you only get an open rate of 5% and a click-through rate of 5%, you're still going to get people coming through to your website, and those people are going to be looking at your products, clicking on things, liking things. They're going to be completing forms, calling you, that kind of stuff. It's all great, but that's not what we're doing here. We're looking at actually building relationships with people, but we're doing that on a one-to-one, but at scale. So we're looking especially for companies that are larger, that might have larger budgets, where you want a relationship, you don't want to push them to your website. I therefore don't put into my email links to my website. I avoid doing that. In fact, the only link to my website will be in my signature, which is at the bottom. And there's a reason for that. If I am trying to create a relationship with a person by talking to them about an idea that I've had that I think could help them, I don't want them to now click on a link, go off to my website and forget about me. I want them to reply to my email and say, hey, Duncan, I think that's a great idea. Have you got time to talk this afternoon or something like that? I don't want them clicking through and disappearing into the ether. I want that relationship to be personal. So therefore, I actually avoid putting links in. The reason I put one in the signature is because what is really going to happen with that signature link is they're going to click on it, go through to the website to understand a little bit more about me and then come back. I'm not pushing them there. It's just for reference, just like links are. They are in signatures for reference, for you to do your research. I want them to come back to that email and reply to me and say, yeah, I think this is quite interesting. How much is that? Or whatever. So asking your original prospect, your original customer, their buying motivations, that must be in your email. Try to include that magic. I've seen emails, I've tested emails with no buyer motivation against emails with buyer motivation, and it really does work. An idea behind buyer motivation would be, for example, the example that I just gave, but also we're talking to those care homes. So we say to them, have you considered care homes as a market for your product because they have this requirement? Now, the owner of that business or the marketing manager may never have considered that. And when I give him that idea, he or she is like, oh, that's a really good idea. We could do that, and we could ship anywhere in this area those envelopes, and it would help those care homes to resolve that problem. But if I just go in and say, hey, would you like a list of records for Manchester? You know, there's no idea there. I'm expecting them to come up with the idea, or already have had an idea of what they could use that data for. So I'm expecting quite a bit of work to have gone on before they come to me as a lead. But if I give them the idea, there is a much higher chance of them coming back to me. I'll give you another example on this one. I've just reached out to a list of printing companies in LA, and I said to them, are you aware that restaurants are going to have to open up at some point over the next few weeks? And as they do, they're going to have social distancing procedures or information displays, etc., within the restaurant. Have you got anything that you could offer to them? Because if you have, I've got a list of restaurants in LA that you could buy off me. And the replies I got back were all about the idea. They'd already bought the data. In their minds, they were like, wow, what a great idea. And I could just tell the reply, what kind of signage do you think that they will need? What are the signage packs other printing companies are doing? What are they including in those signage packs? Those questions were pretty easy to answer, obviously. And the purchasing of my product became almost like just a technical procedure. So trying to think of the campaign that way round is really good. And guess what? That idea had come to me from a company in New York that had reached out to me and said, we're going to be promoting signage packs to all the restaurants in New York. Have you got a list? So I then spun it around and reached out to companies in LA with the same thing, printing companies. Okay, so it's really important to use that idea. I would say that if you were to focus your time on this, that's where a good 80% of your time should go. The 20%, anybody could do it. It's very much a technical procedure, the rest of it. The data, the prospect profiling, the sending of the campaign out, anybody could do that. I promise you. You could ask a marketing assistant to help you do it. Once they've done it once or twice, they could do that. The magic is in the actual putting that content together and putting that offer together so that it resonates with your audience and doesn't come across as a cold campaign. You don't want it to be cold. You want it to come across as though this person is receiving an email from you with an idea, and it's a great idea. This is what a template would look like typically. Hi, first name, got an idea for you. I've just finished building product XYZ for a company. So it might be a printing company, restaurant, whatever. Based in, if you are hyper-local, you can put a location in there. I wondered if this might also be of interest too, and then the company name that you've worked on to be friendly in your Excel spreadsheet. So you've gone straight in with an intro. Don't forget, when you're doing cold email outreach, the first sentence is to get them to read the second sentence. The second sentence to get them to read the third sentence, and so on and so on. So your first sentence is really just giving them the idea. It's just out there with an idea. This is what's going on in your market. Are you interested? The second sentence is to explain how you can help. So now you've given them ideas. Now this is the product and service that you can provide to them to help them. And the third sentence is the call to action. Just reply to me. I'm sat right here. You can reply to this email. When that reply comes in, it will either be relating to the first two sentences. Okay, so can you tell me more about the idea? Or number two, yeah, I get the idea, it's great. Can you tell me a little bit more about your product and service and how it works and how it can help me achieve the goal? So that's what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to get warm replies. So you're wanting to go towards bigger ticket sales. So when I'm normally doing this, you'll see that I think the average product value on this that I was doing was around £300 or £400. And you'll see why in terms of the data in a moment. But you've got larger organizations with higher ticket prices of several £1,000s, tens of thousands of dollars doing exactly this. So it's much more of a personal approach. You could almost consider it around targeting specific accounts. So almost account-based marketing, ABM, which some of you may have come across, which is when you're targeting specific corporates with a specific message about a product that you do. These are the results that I got in. So I got 4 replies to the contacts that I sent out to. And don't forget, it was only a few contacts. If you remember, there was only a few dozen contacts that I sent out to. One was just not interested, but replied but not interested. The other 3, if you could share, that would be great. I shared your email with my MD, but he was mostly concerned about and talked to me about an objection. Thanks for your email, send me over a copy, we'll see whether or not it's of any use. And finally, hi Melissa, not sure it fits with our business really. Do you have any other type you could offer? And it was actually the last one, which was James, who placed the order, and he placed it 4 days later. So what I went out to him with, the idea that I went out to him with, and the product, the service, he didn't want that product or service, but he did want a similar product to what I do and asked me if I did it, and I do, and that resulted in an order. Once the email comes back in, it came back into Melissa, I think. In fact, I used 3 different emails to send this out. So I spread the traffic across 3 different email addresses. When the email came back in, it was just forwarded on to an account manager. And the account manager would then pick it up. I can see that you have emailed in, or you've replied to one of our emails. You've asked me a little bit about this, that, and the other. I've got some information for you. And then that relationship is taken over by an account manager for the reasons that we've gone through before. So that shows you a little bit about how I've done my perfect prospect profile, how I've got the data that I'm going to reach out to, even if it's only a few dozen records, how I've then sent out a message to those people and how I've created that message so that it gets through to the inbox and that it actually creates impact and resonates with the audience. and the replies that I've had come back in. So just to summarize therefore, as we get to the last couple of minutes, it took me about 2 hours to create, but as I said, once you've done it a few times, you can get this down to about 45 minutes. In this particular case, I only sent to a few dozen records, but you could send to many more, obviously. I generated 3 leads. That cost me £12, just over £12 per lead. I'll show you why in a moment. And I generated a sale of £300 within 4 days. I can repeat this process. So we pretty much repeat it once or twice every couple of days. So what I mean by that is sometimes we're so busy, we'll skip a day and we'll do it. But then normally we'll try and do it once a day. I can send additional emails to the same context. Now that's quite interesting. So if I create a sequence of 5 messages, there's nothing stopping me from going back and adding more messages to them. Don't forget, one of my messages in there was, if you don't want me to continue sending to you, just let me know. So those people that haven't replied will still be in that sequence and they'll still be getting those messages. And the more messages you send to them, the better that relationship gets. And if they don't want information, they can just unsubscribe. Now, the unsubscriptions work in that process by, please let me know if you don't want me to send any more information to you, by writing unsubscribe in the subject line of your email. Now, the reason why we do that instead of using an unsubscribe link, which is still compliant with GDPR because we're still allowing people to unsubscribe from receiving information from us, is because it improves the deliverability of the email address, because that person is responding to the email, and those responses to a machine just look as though they're responses. This person's getting responses to the emails. And the system that we use, if it detects the word unsubscribe in the subject line, automatically removes them anyway. So it's all GDPR compliant. I could then clone the campaign going forwards, which saves me an enormous amount of time. So how did I get it down to £12? So with the 3 being looked at, it's £17 in total. The data cost me about £20 because the rate card is 240 per 1,000. There was 84 contacts. Data cleansing is a couple of pounds per month for 1,000 inspections. There's no contract. And delivery is £29 to send that campaign out. I could have sent it out through one account, which is what we typically charge for an account on our system. So it was £51.16 that it cost me to do the whole campaign. I got the 3 leads, £17, and I made £300 in terms of an order. So I had a 586% ROI. So yeah, we were happy on that. I don't always get that. So that's why I took this and I took every part of what I'd done and I created the webinar based on that. I can show you a lot of campaigns that have got 0, but I've obviously omitted those and done the ones that got me earnings, because those are the ones that hopefully will get you earnings. There's a lot of failure that goes into learning how to do this right. So if you need help, you can come to me on LinkedIn, Email Guy. You can also reach out to us on the website, emailmovers.com. You can call us. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Email Movers, and Facebook. So with that, I think I've pretty much come to the end. If you want my checklist, so I go through everything. So if you're going to do it yourself or you're going to use somebody in the marketing department to do this for you, just let me know. I can send that checklist through to you, no problem whatsoever. And I can help if you like. Just let me know. More than happy to give you a little bit of guidance. And so with that, I'm going to hand back over to Chloe and see if we've had any questions come in the last 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Duncan. That was great. We've had lots of really good questions come in, so let's have a look. The first one is from Simon. Do you use LinkedIn Sales Generator? If so, how effective do you find it in sourcing leads?
Do you use what, sorry?
LinkedIn Sales Generator.
Sales Navigator, I think it might be.
It may be. He's put generator, but yeah.
I've not heard generator. If you're talking about Sales Navigator, yeah, I mean, I do have a Sales Navigator account and I do use it. However, I use it to follow up on my email one-to-one outreach. So when I'm doing campaigns, if you've used G Suite before, you know that you can put contacts into your contact address book on G Suite, into your email address. And if you then connect that to LinkedIn on Sales Navigator, LinkedIn will automatically reach out to anybody in your contact address book and ask them to connect with you. So you've got your emails going out on one platform, you've then got G Suite doing the address book, and you've got the connection with LinkedIn doing the connections. And that works really nicely because obviously I get to talk to people on multiple channels. I hope that answers that question.
The next one is from Abigail. Is there anything you could do when a prospect comes back and says they're not interested? Is it best to remove them from the list, or can you ask for feedback?
So what do I do when a person comes back and says they're not interested? You know what? I'm so busy that I don't push people. If they say they're not interested, I have so many other people coming in and asking questions and stuff like that. I just don't do it. I mean, if I know that their account is of importance to me, like for example, Google came to us and asked us for some stuff recently, and I've been asking, like most companies, I've been reaching out to Google for years. You know, do you want this? Do you know, loads of different people, and they'd all said no. And then one afternoon, Google messaged me. So don't give up on the account, but treat the person with, you know, if they're not interested, they personally aren't interested. It might be that someone else in the organization is. So, you know, that's my advice there. Just because they are not interested doesn't mean the company isn't interested. But I would remove them.
Rebecca has asked, what advice would you give someone when they ask to continue speaking with the alias that sent the original email?
That's a good question, and we've had that. So we've only had it in situations where, you know what, this is difficult, and it's really opened our eyes because some of the aliases are female, and the people who demand to talk to that person normally it's not really a lead, to be honest. It's not about personalities, it's about principles. If you want to deal with our company, you will talk to this person, Katie, Reaper, Chloe. They are account managers. That person that you spoke to is purely a lead generator. They're not going to engage in a sales conversation with you. And that we do have people in our lead gen department, and they don't talk to customers. So whether or not you are actually talking to a real person who is in the lead gen department, they will not converse with you about a sale anyway. They don't have the training or anything like that to do so. So we normally just end the conversation. If there's persistence, and sometimes there is, we just ignore it, to be honest, because it probably not the right motivations.
Next question is from Genevieve. Can you put a form with question to answer in an email?
Can you say that again?
Can you put a form with questions to answer in an email?
No. I mean, so an email is HTML, but if you, I think what you're saying is, can you get some kind of an iframe, or can you get some scripts and put that into that HTML so that the email becomes interactive like a website? And the answer to that would be no, because you're actually accessing that email code through an email client, which is, you would then click on it and go through to a website. So sometimes you might see that videos come through in emails, and actually when you click on the video, the play button, it takes you through to YouTube and shows you the website there or the video there. But you can do animated GIFs in emails, those work, but again, they're not interactive. So no, you could take somebody through to a form, no problem, put a link, take them through to a form, but embedding the form in it and having them answer it and submit their questions, no.
There's been two questions that have come in that are quite similar around people worrying that they're being too pushy in chasing potential clients. So this one from Karen, is there an ideal amount of time to leave between initial emails?
So it's important to make one of your emails, if you don't want me to continue sending information to me, just let me know. That's really important, because you then give that person the option of filtering any future messages from you, and it's important that you honor that. If they say no, just as we answered previously, come away. It doesn't mean that another person in their organization has said no, they may have continued. But normally I continue to message people until they unsubscribe. Even with my existing customers and prospects who have registered for downloads, webinars, things like that, they will remain on my list until they unsubscribe, and I will send to them information that I think is of value. Maybe the answer to that question is therefore the last bit is the value. If you're sending information through to people that's really of value, you shouldn't lose anybody, and they should all move nicely along the customer journey. If the information you're sending to them is of no value, they'll start to unsubscribe, your open rates will drop, they'll say, please don't send anything else to me. And if you're seeing a lot of that, you need to look at what you're sending to people.
The next one is from Martin. Hi Duncan, do you have any experience with using HubSpot CRM? And if so, can you provide hints and tips for using the cold email marketing described today?
Yeah, I've used HubSpot a lot. I've used a lot of systems. I run the Salesforce UK user group here in the UK on LinkedIn with about 1,700 members, which I created back in 2003. I've used HubSpot a lot. I've used Zoho. I don't use any of their platforms for email delivery, to be honest. Not for any reason other than they will probably create me a system where I have to fit my marketing to their ideology, I suppose, to the way that they're doing it. And that doesn't always work. You'll see recently that MailChimp have now created all sorts of funky tools, automations, things like that. That's because they're working, but on other platforms. And MailChimp have thought, we need to start offering this to our customers. So, you know, if anything, I'm using a lot of Active Campaign. They've just had $100 million worth of investment. So I'm putting a bit of my time into that campaign platform, because we're going to get $100 million worth of functionality come to us over the next year. And we only pay $40 a month, whatever it is for it. But normally these little things, these little one-to-one platforms, the stuff that really works is quite hard to find, and it's not necessarily available on one of the larger solutions like HubSpot. Salesforce wouldn't be anywhere near this. They would not be anywhere near this. You know, it's just, you got to, you know, look in the long grass for this kind of stuff, hence why you're on this webinar. I hope that helps. But I do love HubSpot. I think it's brilliant.
The next one, how likely are the leads to open a PDF document attached to the cold email?
They probably are quite likely, but the PDF will get your email filtered. That's the problem. I have tested that. Attachments do typically get your email filtered, especially if they're from an unknown sender. So you need to establish a bit of trust first. Maybe on the 5th or 6th email, you could add an attachment. But you might be better linking to the attachment in your signature as a resource for people to look at when they're researching you personally. But just be careful of your deliverability when you're putting attachments in. I noticed that when my email went from 3 sentences to 4 sentences, I was filtered. When I reduced that last sentence, put everything into 3 sentences, I went through. You just got to play around with it and deliver it. What you're looking for is deliverability. That's your key. Anything that stops that deliverability, you need to be aware of or come away from.
The next one has come through anonymous. Do the techniques you've been discussing work equally as well as in mail messaging on LinkedIn? There's 2 ways of in-mail. You've got using credits, and you've got using LinkedIn's own in-mail tool as part of your ads. I've tested both. The issue that I've got with in-mail is that when you get access to the data, you have access to the data once. So with their ads, they give you access to the audience once, and you have to pay for that. When you buy data, you get access to it as many times as you want without having to continue paying for it. You pay for it once. LinkedIn emails sent one at a time. Yeah, I mean, I just got a lead in this morning from somebody who I connected with
I sent them an email about something quite specific. There's no automation. It was specifically about something that they were doing, and they replied and said they wanted more information. Email, I personally find, I just could not do that. I haven't got the time to do that to everybody. So it's great to have, but email is great because I can scale it and watch it work. In mails, you can't, unless you're paying. Then you've got to pay for every contact. You can't do sequences or anything unless you're, using one of these other tools, which you've got to be careful of.
Fantastic. Well, that's all what we've got time for today. Duncan, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure our audience will agree that was a great session. I have included Duncan's email into the comments. So if you would like to get in touch with him, you can do through that. And if you would like the free checklist, you can request through that email address as well. Do you have any final words, Duncan?
Good luck, and I hope that everybody, this whole lockdown thing, I hope that everybody's safe and sound and enjoys the next few weeks of getting back to work.
Fantastic. Our next webinar in the Lockdown Learning for Business series takes place on Friday, the 5th of June, with Hayes McIntyre as they summarise financial, tax and accounting measures during COVID. So if you are looking for some advice, this is a great one for you. If there is anything you'd like to catch up on from today's session, we'll be sending out a replay of the webinar coming shortly. You can find the replay and future webinars at www.freshbusinessthinking.haysummit.com or by clicking on the link in the comments. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Duncan.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.